Now, we all know, and I'm sure many people have seen, in the beginning of, just before this invasion, the US intelligence community came out to say, look, Russia's planning an invasion. And both the far right and the far left Twitter were like, this is bullshit, it's never going to happen. They're always lying about it. Yeah. Oh, you lie about it. It's like US intelligence, imperialist, hegemonic, blah, blah, blah.
Shit.
What's a military industrial... whatever those stupid words that they've been throwing out since the 60s. We hear this all the time.
They haven't really changed, have they?
No, it's all the same. You know what I mean? But how on earth does that affect the Russia-Ukraine situation?
How on earth does U.S. intelligence, how is that a partisan thing?
Yeah.
The intelligence said that there's going to be an invasion, and guess what? There was.
Yeah, there was an invasion. But you know what? A lot of people jumped the gun on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
Like this particular...
I would say the extremes.
This particular gem of a man called George Galloway.
This is insane what we found about this.
So he says, y'all said hashtag Russia was about to invade hashtag Ukraine. I told you it wasn't. You were wrong. I was right. Again, show some bloody humility, especially if they're not even paying you to act like an idiot. Okay.
Projectionism?
Yeah, I'd say projectionism. Now, this actually led us down a bit of a rabbit hole. We're going to get into that because we've got a few other things to cover.
Yeah, I just wanted to show some people a couple of examples of that. So that was a good example of something that led us to a China connection.
Yes, the big China connection.
This is one of thousands of things I saw on the other side. So this is that the example that you use would be an example of the far left, right?
Yeah.
Here's an example of the far right.
Yeah,
so
we're balanced here.
We're balanced here. So a neighbor of a family member, right, sent this and said, "Hey, this is great news," right? And it's from this website. It's called like USA Watchdog or something. Yeah. And again, this expert, right? Yeah. This whatever now a right-wing expert in this case, he says is a former assistant Treasury Secretary. He talks about how there's not going to be a shooting war. Yeah. And this was on the 22nd, by the way. It's not going to be a shooting war, and they're going to take like a separatist region with minimal shelling, and then everything's totally fine. So don't worry about it. Not only that, it's justified because Ukraine's neo-Nazis. Yeah. And all this kind of shit. You know, that typical rhetoric.
I don't know why everyone's going on about Ukraine being Nazis.
Because people are so ashamed to be wrong about Russia's overreach here. No, Russia's not going to do that. You know?
And then when it does, they're like, oh, well, Ukraine deserves
Ukraine's
it
bad
anyway.
Yeah. And I'm getting also, I had some people reach out to me. Actually, a lot of people reach out to me now telling me that Ukraine only exists because of the CIA. And so it doesn't really matter.
This conspiracy shit has to go away.
It's the reality of the situation is that a dictator invaded a sovereign democratic country in Europe, and we're dealing with the aftermath right now. Actually, we're currently dealing with the current situation. So I was seeing this, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is that Winston and I are heavily involved with Chinese propaganda. We know how Chinese propaganda works because we read and speak Chinese. Yeah. One thing I've always heard about was Russian propaganda. Yeah. It's much more savvy, right? I've never seen it. Like, I've never gone out to go look for it, right? Yeah. But because we're trying to find these connections between China and Russia in this whole sphere, I've been running across a lot of things like this. Yeah. I got to tell you guys, like, right or left, whatever side you're on, doesn't matter. Be very careful about what you're consuming because there are things like this, these kind of boomer, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the type of audience that would consume this on Facebook and share it around. Yeah. This kind of media it's Russian propaganda.
Yeah, so this is Russian propaganda.
You're looking at Russian propaganda here, and it's pretty insane.
You know what else is Russian propaganda?
What?
Is the thing we showed previously.
That's what I'm saying. They're both examples.
This
right
George Galloway guy is Russian propaganda too.
This is far left and that's far right, but it's the same
But they're both Russian propaganda.
Yeah, and it's all out there. So not being an expert on Russian propaganda, I just wanted to say I was shocked and now getting very interested in seeing how pervasive it is. It's all over the place. And we're going to show you the connection between that and China very soon. Yeah. I want to give a timeline on how the Chinese coverage. People came to us because they want to know how China is covering this / what they're involved with. So when it first came out, I'm going to pull up my notes here. When it first came out that this was happening, right? The initial invasion, not the full-scale invasion, was, what are you talking about? Cut off all the media. Yes. This is before the leak. Cut off all the media. They're like, what are you talking about? There's no invasion. Why are you stupid, crazy Western media outlets making this such a big deal? Yeah. To the point where, just like the Russian propaganda you showed earlier, the right and left one, there's no conflict. So China's state narrative, CGTN, although this is a citizen video, CGTN is Chinese state
exclusive.
media.
See, exclusive CGTN. A Chinese student who lives in Kiev says Locals are not fleeing on a large scale at this moment. Most of the private cars are still there.
So this was flying in the face of when people were fleeing Kiev.
Yeah.
When you saw those highways going absolutely crazy, just chock full of cars,
Yeah.
China's response was nothing to see here. Just like Wuhan. Just like it really just mirrors every time something happens. Just like the chained up woman.
Yeah.
Just like Peng Shuai. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. Their first response was that there is no conflict.
Yeah.
Right? There's still remnants of that. So the next part of the timeline, this is the headlines from today.
From today.
Okay?
This is today. People's Daily Online. This is the biggest news, newspaper for China out there.
Yes.
For every day. And there's not a mention of it.
No.
No. It says, she urges China winter sports athletes to strive for nation, people.
Very, very interesting. When you have the China's mouthpiece internet from the government as their front page, not talking about what every headline in the entire world, in every country is talking about right now.
They have a little side note there that
do.
says Chinese embassy in Kiev prepares to bring back Chinese nationalists amid... nationals, sorry. Well, same thing.
In that case, probably.
Yeah. Nationals amid escalating Ukraine-Russia crisis. Okay, good. So that sounds like, okay, cool. But what is that? What are they actually talking about there?
So that is, I leave this up because this is just fascinating
just
to disseminate.
Okay.
So the Chinese people in Ukraine started spazzing out. And you know why? Because China blocked all information about it. They said that there was no invasion in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So you had Chinese nationals living in Ukraine that said, why are there bombs going off everywhere? And why are there people dying? Yeah. Why is there a full-scale military invasion here? You said that there wasn't.
They're also complaining that the Chinese embassy wasn't evacuating.
That's what I was getting onto. So they were like, because it didn't fit the state narrative.
Yeah.
They said there was no conflict.
Yeah.
So why would they go evacuate people? So Chinese people started getting angry at the central government, saying, why are you not evacuating us? So then they're like, okay, we'll evacuate. Just shut up about it. Don't talk about it. But they went online. They're like, get us out of here, dude. Yeah. So that is combating that piece.
Yeah.
Right. This is fascinating to disseminate. Yeah. So you also have some stuff about what the foreign ministry said, and we'll pull that up next. This is where it gets interesting. You guys want to know how China's covering this? Well, I told you it's a timeline. It's going to morph. Now that there is an invasion and that they have to kind of say, okay, all right, there's some bombs. There's some stuff going off here.
Yeah.
The foreign ministry, Hua Chunying, who is a wolf warrior.
We call them turd warriors, wolf wankers. It's basically China's undiplomatic diplomats.
Yes.
So what they do is they go out there and they just speak insulting crap on behalf of the Chinese government. It's kind of like a bully who says, nah, you suck. Like that. Mm-hmm. Except it's supposed to be a diplomat. Yeah.
Perfectly said. So what did she say? Well, her job is to tell you what China's official narrative is, right? Mm-hmm. That's what her job is. That's what the foreign ministry spokesman does. Yeah. Spokeswoman in this case. She says the U.S. has been increasing tensions and hyping up a war for some time. Do you know how many arms and ammunition the U.S. sent to Ukraine? Man, the U.S. lives in China's head rent-free, dude. Holy crap. Yeah. If the United States had done more to promote peace and respect Russia's security worries, war could have been averted. Yeah. This is not the time to pour oil on the flame, but to put our heads together to come up with a way to put out the fire and safeguard peace. So this, you'd have to be actually intellectually disabled to not read through read between the lines here. China, in the beginning, was first trying to say there wasn't anything wrong. Yes. Then they were like, we're not going to take sides because China's number one favorite, ultimate, serious go-to quote is that we do not get involved with other nations' affairs. And other people shouldn't get involved with other nations' affairs because they don't want people getting involved with their genocide, their human rights atrocities, their border disputes, all the Taiwan issue, all the stuff that they do wrong.
Yes.
They don't want other countries to be able to tell them what to do, right? Or even guide them. So this invasion is kind of scary for China, who has to pick a side. Of course. Unfortunately for China, they have to pick Russia's side because they're going to benefit from a conflict secretly.
Not unfortunately, that's what they want.
Unfortunately for humankind.
Yeah, for humankind.
for this, what they want. They're going to benefit from supplying Russia with things behind the scenes, and they're also going to benefit from having a fair weather friend for the time being, in a time where people are going to be very, very negative towards Russia, at least public sentiment and sanction-wise, right?
Yeah.
So Hua Chunying, our wolf flanker, wolf warrior, turd warrior,
This woman over here.
she is basically using language to make it sound like, or dress up this idea that, hey, we didn't take a side, but actually we completely support what Russia's doing. And I caught them, actually.
Yeah, if you read into what she said there, she basically, the tankies do this too all the time. They say, oh, yeah, we should work together. The US is so bad. We should just work together. But meanwhile, what they're saying is...
What does America have to do with this?
Yeah, exactly. What they're saying is you must do what China says. And in this case, they're like, well, it's the US's fault. If they just allowed Russia to overtake the Ukraine without a fight and without saying anything about it, everything would be okay.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
That's exactly what it is. That's tanky logic. And by the way, tankies, if you're new, a tanky is a class of person who believes in authoritarianism.
Yeah.
So not
supports
just
these communist
not just communist. It's not just communists. They support like dictators.
Yes.
Like they want full state control over stuff. They would support like a Gaddafi. They would support a Hussein. They would support a Xi Jinping. A
Yeah, it's
Putin.
morphed. And the term tanky comes from the time when the USSR invaded some of its own states who were starting to rebel and used tanks to kill the civilians and
Right.
stuff.
And they support that.
They support that, yeah.
It's by any means necessary, more or less, is what they support. So this is the next part of the timeline, was how state media took their foreign and this is not necessarily what they said to their own citizens. This is what the foreign ministry said to the rest of the world, is like, we actually are supporting Russia, but we're going to say we didn't pick a side, and stupid US made this war happen.
Yeah.
Absolute absurdity, right? So after Hua Chunying made her statement, we also saw some stuff from the foreign ministry, which was Wang Wenbin, right? This is another foreign ministry spokesman, Wang Wenbin. This is from the same set of articles on state media. I just found
the
this
same set. Yeah.
I don't want to say hilarious because this is a bad situation,
Sure.
but it says China has always decided its own position and policy based on the merits of the matter itself, and has always stood on the side of peace and justice. Can you take us away so I can read the actual thing from one of the same articles? The Chinese side supports the Russian side in solving the issue.
Yeah, so in his speech, he's trying to say we don't pick sides type thing. But then is it in the same article or related?
The same page, the same. It's the same article from the same source.
Yeah, so basically in the same source, it says that the Chinese side supports the Russian side. In other words, they fully support Russia in this particular endeavor.
And I do want to give context to that quote. I put that in for effect, obviously, but it says like in resolving this issue through diplomacy or something. So this is the next part of the timeline here.
Yeah.
So we saw them go from it doesn't exist to it's USA's fault to, okay, we support Russia, but we can't say we support Russia.
Yes.
But we're going to let everyone do their own thing, right? To official documents being leaked.
Yeah, this is an official for one of the biggest news sites. Okay, it's a direction of how the news has to cover this whole Ukraine-Russia crisis. Okay,
yes,
this was leaked before the invasion.
So you can see through these bullet points I'm about to read that when you have your state media mouthpiece outlet and the censorship board that has dictated what is allowed to be said and what is not allowed to be said, what side they've actually taken here.
Yeah.
And accidentally post, and this is an accidental post from the censorship.
Yeah, they screwed up actually, and they posted it publicly.
Are you surprised?
No.
How many times does this happen? How many times do we get our hands on documents by accident?
Yeah, because they just don't know what they're doing.
This accidental post here on Tuesday revealed a Chinese media outlet's instructions on the Russia-Ukraine coverage. So first, of course, state media with one of the lowest journalistic freedom ratings in the world, of course, is going to have guidelines.
Yeah.
Let's see what those are. Horizon News, which is a subset of Beijing News, again, state media, shared the instructions on its Weibo account.
Yeah, by mistake. By the way, you can be guaranteed that whatever these instructions are for the subset news have been given to the higher up news as well. It's the same set of instructions. It just gets sent to everyone.
That's absolutely correct.
It gets sent to all the social media platforms too. Anyway, what does it say?
The reason that these types of things happen, this is like a lower level one.
Yeah.
There's more room for error.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though we've seen top ones like CGTN accidentally leak stuff, which we've covered on our videos. The post noted. And Weibo, by the way, Weibo is Twitter for China.
Yeah, it's
China's
Chinese
version
Twitter
of Twitter.
knockoff, yeah.
Because Twitter is banned and blocked in China.
Of course.
Post noted that no anti-Russia content would be published.
Yes. Not allowed to publish anything anti-Russia. That's number one.
So that's the most important thing to take away from this. And basically goes into detail about how the Ukraine conflict, it needs to look like there was no side taken, but officially
so if
we support
the
Russia.
Russian military goes in and slaughters civilians, it's not allowed to be talked about.
Correct.
If they do anything bad, it's not allowed to be talked about.
Correct. I'm not surprised.
No.
But that does reveal a very, very on purpose bias.
Oh, of course.
Which is going to have to lead you as a viewer will lead the way that you kind of perceive the news coming out of this in the future, and China's relationship with Russia can really start to blossom from this news that they've leaked.
I'll be honest with you, like right now in China, a lot of the people that I've been talking to aren't even aware of the situation.
Yes.
It's just such small news, and it's so blocked out right now that they're like, oh, really? Whatever. Let's talk about something else.
And that's a good point to bring up, is we're covering kind of what they want us to see and like how they want us to perceive how Beijing's going to take care of the situation. But domestically, it's not full media blackout, but it's very curated.
Yes, very, very curated. So much so that it's a non-issue for them.
Yes.
It's like a huge amount of people.
Right.
All right, what's the next point?
You guys can go into that in full detail. This sets up exactly what we're going into that we've discovered. We think this is something you can find online, right?
Yeah.
What's more important is something palpable and real that we've discovered.
Yeah. On our, by the way, on our subreddit, if you don't know about it, it's reddit.com/r/ADVChina. A member there has a popular Instagram account about living in Japan. And he says, as my family lives in the Ukraine, I started posting about their difficult situation. Soon after, my account was flooded with comments from the troll account saying Japan is stealing kimono from China. So you see, the Wumao army is already out there. Anyone starts to criticize the situation in the Ukraine, which of course is going against the CCP narrative, now they are attacking anyone.
This was a delicious piece of proof that we had, because of this leaked document about like there's no anti-Russia content allowed to be covered in China, is proof, because when the Wumaos, the paid internet trolls, are going after to run defense for Russia, the two propaganda networks have linked up.
Oh, and we're going to show you that right now. Okay, so remember we talked about this sterling example of a human being called George Galloway.
So George Galloway apparently is some sort of British politician. And when we say that, it's very clever how this stuff happens, because if you Google him, it's like, oh, he's just a British politician that happens to be a correspondent for RT, which is Russia's state media. It used to be called Russia Today, right?
Yeah.
But actually, when you say politician, he's part of some bizarre tiny party that he founded himself.
Yeah, it's like if we went out and started the Democratic Labor Party Union,
right,
or something like that, and then we said like we're politicians, and we've got like 100 members or something,
or 5,
whatever,
or whatever the minimum is.
This guy's got a weird history. We're not going to go into his history. That's not the point. The point is that you can see here on the official RT channel and RT UK, which is the Russia Today. It's now just called RT. This is a Russia propaganda, outlet. He's one of their main spokespeople. He runs his own talk show for them.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this guy, when you saw that tweet saying that there was no invasion, right?
Yeah.
You have to know full on in the beginning that he is a Russian propagandist.
Yes, that's why we're showing here. He is on their official mouthpiece channels.
I looked him up.
Yeah.
Full public support for Saddam Hussein, Bashar al-Assad, multiple dictators. This guy is basically, mother of all talk shows.
That's
it should
what he
be
calls himself.
The mother of all tankies.
The mother of all tankies.
Right.
He's a massive tanky is what we're trying to say here. Okay? But now it starts to get in depth. So you see he runs this talk show called Moats.
Mother of all talk shows.
Yeah, which he's obviously building moats around people, walling things off. He's just
shouting anti-Semitic slurs.
Yeah, he literally shouted out like.
That's there another time.
Yeah, he shouted out. He's a terrible person. Yeah. Anyway, the fact of the matter, he runs this talk show on behalf of the Russian government. Sorry. Okay, but you might be surprised to see a few things. Okay, so you can see there it's labeled RT is, funded in part or in whole by the Russian government. Okay, you can see that.
Right.
There's a label. So if you see this pop up, you can be like, okay, it's Russian propaganda. It's
yeah,
good.
I mean, and you would move on from that
Yeah.
until we discovered something.
Exactly. You'd be surprised to find out that he's also a frequent guest and talk show kind of host thing on CGTN as well.
China's
Ooh.
state media.
Yep.
Full
They're
on.
constantly interviewing him. There he is with Liu Xing.
Yep.
Okay. We all know her. She's connected to a lot of the propaganda in the English-speaking propaganda coming
Yeah.
out of China.
Yeah.
And once again, look, CGTN is funded in part or, by the Chinese government, right?
Yes.
Whole or by
Yeah.
part.
So again, to go back to that, you have a slide of him on RT, and it
Yes.
says RT is funded in part or in whole by the Russian government.
Yes.
He is now on CGTN. I want to reiterate, is funded in whole or in part by the Chinese government.
Okay, now here he is on RT with Li Jingjing. Li Jingjing is an official reporter for CGTN, okay? She's also, and we're going to show you why this is important. Okay, so she's a reporter for the Chinese state media.
Yes.
Here she is appearing on Russian state media.
RT.
Along with this Galloway dude. And it says over here, again, RT is, funded by the Russian government, okay? That's fair enough. So you've got a Chinese state employee on a Russian state
Right.
employee's thing on a Russian state media channel.
Yes.
Okay, but now this is where they try to get away and blur the lines. Okay, here, just to once again set up who this is. There is Li Jingjing at the whatever it was, the centenary of the Communist Party. But here, that same interview, that same talk show, is now, she has posted it on her own personal channel. Okay, and this is where the lines get blurred. Because if someone were to watch this, okay, there is no label there saying that this is funded by the Russian government.
Or Chinese.
Or the Chinese government. You see, they just like, oh, it's just a little channel of this Chinese girl who likes to talk to people or what have you, And she puts other little things on there. But this is made by RT, Russian media. It's got a state-sponsored Chinese reporter, and it's been put on just a normal channel that's no longer labeled. So if somebody watched this, which a lot of people have watched it if you look at the numbers,
Yep.
okay, somebody watches it on her channel, they'll be like, oh, this is cool. And they don't have that warning that this is actually state media,
It's one thing I want to point out that's very important is that Twitter has designated her. Can you pause it for a second?
Yeah.
Has designated her as a agent of the Chinese government for media.
Yes.
Right, a media agent. YouTube refuses to do so.
Yeah.
And it bothers me when it says funded in part or in whole by the Chinese government. That's the CGTN channel. That's the Chinese media channel.
Yeah.
But she's allowed to have her own channel, which is not labeled as such.
Yeah.
And it has identical material.
Exact same
And it's
stuff.
something that we keep pushing for.
Yeah.
That YouTube, and remember in that, was it New York Times article, they said, we haven't found any sort of connection to a mass scale like campaign by the Chinese government. Bullshit, Google. Get your head out of your ass.
Yeah.
Because this is incredibly immoral to have authoritarian dictatorships allowed to run personal channels
Yeah.
with identical mirrored videos
Yes.
without the watermarks in there. In this case, even with a watermark
Yeah.
in it. And then not labeled as state media. Twitter does it. Why can't you do it?
Remember, everybody, CNN and MSNBC and all these, they may be biased, they may be bullshit mainstream media, Fox News and stuff, but they are not funded by the government. It is
correct.
not government funded. So, you can't have...
Not just that straight up mouthpiece.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't have the CIA and the FBI or whatever say, you must go and say this because you belong to us.
Yeah.
And then they have to say it. RT and CGTN are under direction from the government and the Communist Party of China and the Communist Party of Putin or whatever it is called. Okay.
The autocratic party.
The Russian Federation of bullshit. Now, over here, you can see again. Here it is on CGTN. Li Jingjing with other propagandists that they use, foreign propagandists.
Again, read it.
Says CGTN is funded in whole or part by the Chinese government. So it gives you a fair warning. All right.
It's good. Thank you for telling me.
That way, you know that what you're hearing coming out of the mouths of these people is from the state, at least in part, or it's condoned by the Chinese state. There she is again with the soldiers, all right? We're not talking about a little YouTuber who's all by herself making videos.
Or how we've heard that story a few times.
Yeah, exactly. She is working for the Chinese state. Here she is doing behind the scenes of the Beijing military parade. Okay. And it gets better. Again, who's that? There's Cardi C. Those
Cardi
of you who don't know, the cotton, the I'm a who, the whatever. There she is again with other foreign propagandists. And it tells you as much, which is great. And it warns you. Okay, now let's move on here. Let's get back to Galloway. Here he is interviewing a tanky, okay, and another sympathizer for the Communist Party of China, an awful person. But, you know, it's straight up, you can see here, it says here that RT is funded by the Russian government. So here, it's very straightforward. You can see this guy's for Russian propaganda, working for Russian propaganda, and so is he, okay? It's there, you can tell. The message that's coming out of their mouths is on behalf of the Russian government. They are Russian propaganda.
Right, correct.
Okay, and you can tell.
And YouTube tells you,
yes,
what you're watching is Russian propaganda. Watch it at your own discretion.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have clear-cut Russian propagandists. What do you know? Here again, same guy, except
Chinese
it's
propaganda.
Chinese propaganda.
So I can watch that and I can say, hey, that's Chinese propaganda.
Yeah. So what we can see here very clearly is state-sponsored propaganda and state-sponsored propagandists. Both of these people here are working on behalf of the Chinese CCP state to put out propaganda. Okay? But then, again, they try to sidestep it because look here. This George Galloway guy, the same interview, all right? The same thing. Russian propaganda is now on his channel, George Galloway, and it has no label. And it's got views.
Correct.
So the people who've watched this on his personal channel think that this is maybe his own little talk show. He's just a podcaster, you know, he's just doing this thing.
Despite the art.
And he's, yeah, I know. I mean, they didn't take that out, but they do sometimes.
They often do.
Yeah. So what you see here is you can see proper state propaganda, tanky propaganda from the Russian government is masquerading as just a talk show on a personal channel.
Can we report these videos for non-labels? You can't.
No, YouTube doesn't allow that.
I have tried to get in dialogues. I'm not trying to narc out these channels. What I'm trying to do is make it transparent because what YouTube has done is finally one of the last people to do this, to capitulate to the overwhelming demand to make it transparent that you're watching propaganda from a government. Yes. Right? And they've done that with the government channels, but these, what do we call them? Not booster channels, amplifier channels.
Yes, amplifiers.
These amplifier channels don't get the same label despite posting the exact same thing. And when you think you can go to report, you can report for anything. Report for violence, report for this, report for swearing. You cannot report for sidestepping the rules and regulations that say that you have to report this as state media.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and this is the thing that frustrates me the most is we have a lot of people out there who try to shut us down.
Yes.
They don't try, they just want to silence us.
Well, yes, it's in the interest of these governments to try to silence us.
In fact, the people that you see in this picture behind us have tried multiple times to cancel us.
I would say 1,000 times.
Yeah, shut us down, sick the government on us, you know, sick the whatever, you know, go after our families, discussing things that these people do. But their end goal is to silence any opposition. Our goal is not to silence psychopaths like you see over here. No. Our goal is to show transparency, who they are. They work for these governments.
There are very good maps and things like ASPI put out one that shows you the CCP influencer, so in this case, this guy here, and all of their links to every state outlet, who they're getting their information from, who they're getting signal boosted by, and it's so goddamn clear who they're working for and who they're maybe funded by, who they're at least amplified by in the country where they live.
Yes.
And YouTube won't say that it's state-sponsored media.
No. It's ridiculous.
This is important, and the reason, and it's not just that, this is not just our appeal to call for that.
Yeah.
I think it's important in this day and age where we're going to see much more Chinese and Russian propaganda. Yes. And we found a connection between the two, and it's something that they've been trying to hide
Yes.
It's something that has not served them to be public about. No one in Russian leadership in the past wanted to say we endorse the Chinese state, and vice versa. They're not supposed to have really anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
But in faced with conflict, you see both propaganda teams joining together. And again, this Russian propaganda would have never ended up on my doorstep if it didn't have something to do with China now.
Yeah.
And there is severe crossover between full-on Russian state media and Chinese full-on state media. Their guests, their agents working together.
Correct.
Not just being like friendly guests on their shows. They
having
are
proper
being
segments.
sponsors, having proper segments, and it's fascinating to see.
Yeah. So it's just, like you say, it's fascinating to see that you have the same people. This Galloway guy is interviewing and being interviewed by the Russians and the Chinese state medias. And the people that are appearing on his show are also appearing on both Russian state media and Chinese state media. It's just straightforward. They are all working together to basically like a united front to spread misinformation and disinformation out there.
Here's a prediction I have.
Yeah.
It's something you guys need to be super worried about. Not worried about. Need to be hyper aware of.
Yes.
Okay. Remember those things? Remember this Galloway guy, that tweet that we showed, the ultra left and then the ultra right version of that, right?
Yeah.
That stuff is hard to delineate. It's hard to actually pick that out and say, oh, who is this person? Let me look him up and see his roots and why his motivation for this would be posted.
Read the Wikipedia on this guy. You
My
will
point
be
is,
like, what the hell is this guy?
My point is that's there's a million of these people, right? There's a million, and they have American, NRA looking, gun rights looking websites disseminating Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
I think China is going to actually, now that we've seen this collaboration, my worry is that China is going to start using the same savvy techniques that Russia has. I mean, let's be totally honest. Our job is, when we like kind of break down propaganda, Chinese propaganda, it's not the hardest thing in the world. Yeah. It's more funny, and that's actually why the direction of our podcast could even be classified as semi-comedy, because China's so bad at propaganda.
Absolutely.
But when you have a collaboration like this, Russia is not bad at propaganda.
No, they're not bad at propaganda.
Russia knows exactly how to do propaganda, to the point where you have neighbors reading Russian propaganda on a pro-America website.
I know, right?
So my worry is that China will come together, they'll learn a thing or two from each other and start collaborating properly, but past state media. Yeah. Not just on these stupid bullshit. Who's going to go out there on CGTN and be like, this is impartial?
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, let me go on Sputnik or RT. This is impartial.
That Galloway guy works for Sputnik as well.
Correct. My worry is it goes beyond that. And you start seeing China and Russia start to enter alternative media websites. Yeah. So there's this narrative that goes around and says YouTube is communist. People will say, get on Rumble. YouTube is communist. You need to get on Rumble or Locals or Parler or whatever. Yeah. Or maybe on some other bullshit thing that they come up with. Some random thing. The worry I have is that people will start filtering into those things because they'll say, oh, screw censorship on YouTube and stuff, right?
Look, and I sympathize.
I do. I
sympathize because we're in that position.
Correct.
Okay, YouTube does shadow ban us, and it does really go after us because we're not saying the mainstream thing. And if we want to be able to earn money from our videos, there's a certain amount of self-censorship that has to happen.
Sure.
It has to. We can't show certain things which we need to often show, even if they're censored. We can't do it because it automatically gets our videos taken off of YouTube.
It's less about censoring on behalf of the CCP and more that we can't show situations of violence.
We can't even talk about it. Like my video got age restricted because it said graphic descriptions of the violence or whatever.
Correct.
I was talking about domestic violence issues in China.
And again, I agree that that's ridiculous. The thing is, I want people to be clear that this is not being censored on behalf of the CCP.
Yeah.
I think we owe it to our audience to be very fair, and a lot of other channels I hear, this is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
They'll cover like similar topics as us, and they'll say they're after us because of the CCP.
Sure.
That's absolutely not true. Maybe mass flagging with Wu Mao accounts and things, there's some semblance of truth. But nobody's sitting at YouTube saying, I'm going to shut down this channel because I love the CCP.
No, but what it is the general narrative, which the CCP shapes.
Correct.
Like the anti-Asia hate narrative and so on. They shape it in a certain way which affects everybody.
Right.
So they do. But so do many players like Russia, etc., etc.
Correct. So I just wanted to say I'm worried that alternative media platforms will start to get this type of stuff in there with different actors.
Yeah.
Because when you can kind of morph an audience and say, yeah, screw those censors over, as commies over at YouTube or Patreon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Some mainstream bullshit. Then you have a captive audience.
Sure.
And you have a captive audience that you can start to shape. And I've actually seen this on some alternative platforms. And I won't say what, but I think you can back me up in saying that some of the comments start to shift towards pro CCP narrative without them even knowing that they're going in that direction.
Well, I agree with you 100%. It's just something that we have to watch out about. But the fact of the matter is they already are on alternative media, and alternative media is YouTube.
Right.
Okay, look at this. We've got propagandists here working for the Chinese government. Both of the people that you see above us here have their own personal channels, okay, which disseminate Chinese propaganda.
Right.
Okay, that's what they do. Here you can see, oh, it's labeled as such. But on their personal channels, it's not labeled as such. And they even post the exact same videos that you see here on their own channels, and it's not taken seriously.
Right.
And if anyone's following people, oh, look, it's just a travel channel, you know? Oh, look, it's just somebody who's got an interesting life in China, you know? No, it is state-sponsored bullshit that you're gobbling up when you watch it. You don't realize that because there's no label, all right? And look at these people that work for the Russian propaganda right here. They've got their own channels too. Yeah. And if you were to go to these channels and just watch one of the videos, you might be like, this guy has a point. That guy has a point. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Without realizing what you're doing is swallowing wholesale state propaganda, the propaganda of a government. Either the Russian government or the Chinese government, or in this case, both. Because you can see these same two people that you see up here right now also appearing on Chinese state media. Chinese and Russian state media.
In creating Chinese state media.
Yeah.
Not just appearing on it.
Look, there we have Liu Xin again. Same actor. All right? And then again, if we go back here, there. Where is it? I'll show you again. There we go. Liu Xin, same actor. So the two people that are interviewing each other for Russian propaganda RT are also on CGTN, separately speaking to the same woman. It's all connected. It's a huge, terrible, tanky, commie propaganda party that's going on over
It's
here.
a big party, and not the good kind.
No, it's
like
a communist party.
Room.
Yeah.
It's a communist party.
It is. Let's go to the communist party where everybody gets to say America bad and then just, I don't know, allow atrocities to happen without calling them out.
Yes.
You know?
I just want to say one thing. I was just looking at some of the chat.
Yeah.
Both Winston and I are very much anti-censorship. And I guess, if I was going to finish, I was going to say, the reason that Winston and I choose a platform like YouTube is because it gets the most people. Yes. A captive audience that already has their mind made up about something doesn't need more of that, right? Yeah. YouTube allows us to talk to both sides, and both Winston and I think that the China and Russia issue is completely bipartisan. Yes. So if you're American out there, we're not taking the right or left side. In fact, Winston and I are both pretty much moderates. Yeah. Right? So
I definitely lean more to the right and you lean more to the left, but we're still in the center.
You make it look like over here. Yeah. We're literally like, if you could draw a very small circle around the middle, that's where we meet up. Yeah. So the thing about that is that reaching the largest possible audience to just say what we know, to explain things to you is our goal. That is our goal. And when YouTube does censor, we are absolutely against it. We're not supporting YouTube censorship whatsoever. But to me, and what I was reading, some of these people were saying is, we're calling for the state labels on these things, and they're saying that's censorship. That is not censorship.
It doesn't censor it.
No.
Look, this is still up.
Yeah.
You can go watch it right now. Putting a label on something is correct. And if we were by any chance funded by the American government, I'd like to see a label underneath my video.
Absolutely, just out of transparency and fairness.
Yeah.
Right? But we're not.
No,
so
we're not funded by anyone, other than you guys who support us.
Yeah, send us super chats and whatnot. And unless you're the American government, send in some fat super chats.
That would be a clever way to do it.
That would. Come on. Anyway, we want to stay neutral in U.S. politics. It has nothing to do with what we talk about, and we hope you guys can appreciate that.
Yeah.